My name is Sarah Miller. I'm 31. On Thursday, March 14th at 6:47 p.m., I came home 3 days early from a business trip to find my mother-in-law standing in my living room with electric clippers in her hand. My 3-year-old daughter, Lara's beautiful brown curls scattered across the hardwood floor like fallen leaves, and my sister-in-law, Katie, screaming at me that I should be grateful they were only shaving her head instead of calling the police on a toddler thief. "She stole my gold bracelet," Katie was saying, her face red and twisted. "Your daughter is a little criminal, Sarah, just like her mother." Lara was sobbing, her head half-shaved, patches of scalp showing through. She reached for me with both arms. "Mama, Mama, it hurts. They hurt me." Lucia, my mother-in-law, stepped between us. The clippers were still buzzing in her hand. "Don't you dare comfort her. She needs to learn that stealing has consequences. In our family, we don't tolerate thieves." I looked at my daughter's tear-streaked face, at the clumps of hair stuck to her neck with sweat and tears, at the red marks on her scalp where the clippers had been pressed too hard. Something cold and sharp settled in my chest. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I walked across the room, picked up my daughter, and said in a voice that didn't sound like mine, "Get out of my house now." Katie laughed. Actually laughed. "Your house? This is Theo's family home. You're just the outsider who wormed her way in. And now we know your daughter is a thief, just like we always suspected about you." I said get out. Lucia clicked off the clippers. She set them on my coffee table like she owned the place. "We're not going anywhere until you apologize to Katie and make your daughter tell us where she hid the bracelet. It's worth $8,000. If she doesn't produce it by tomorrow morning, we're filing a police report for theft." My hands were shaking as I held Lara. Her whole body was trembling against my chest. I could feel her heartbeat, fast and panicked like a trapped bird. "Lara didn't take anything. She's 3 years old." "Children steal," Katie said, "especially when they have your genetics." Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself and protecting your child mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. Because what happened next changed everything. I carried Lara upstairs to her bedroom. I could hear Lucia and Katie still talking downstairs, their voices sharp and satisfied. I sat on the floor of Lara's bathroom and used her toy scissors to even out the rest of her hair, trying to make it less horrible, less like punishment. She cried the whole time, soft hiccuping sobs that broke something in me I didn't know could break. "Did you take Katie's bracelet?" I asked her gently. She shook her head, her eyes huge and wet. "I don't even know what a bracelet is, Mama. What's a bracelet?" That's when I knew for certain. Lara couldn't identify a bracelet. She was 3. She spent her days playing with stuffed animals and finger paints. She didn't know what jewelry was, let alone how to steal it. I heard the front door close. They'd finally left. I finished cutting Lara's hair, gave her a bath, put her in her favorite pajamas with the elephants on them, and held her until she fell asleep at 8:23 p.m. Then I went downstairs and looked at my living room with clear eyes for the first time. The living room where I'd installed a nanny cam 7 months ago. Let me take you back to September 15th of last year. I'd just returned from a 5-day conference in Seattle, and I found Lara's favorite stuffed rabbit in the trash. When I asked Theo about it, he said his mother had thrown it away because it was ratty and embarrassing. Lara had cried for 2 hours looking for that rabbit. I'd bought her a new one, but it wasn't the same. That's when I started noticing other small things. A bruise on Lara's arm that Lucia said came from being clumsy. And comments about Lara being difficult and spoiled whenever I traveled for work. Theo always defending his mother, saying I was overreacting, that I was too sensitive, that his family just had different parenting styles. So I bought a nanny cam. It looked like an ordinary digital clock on the bookshelf. I didn't tell anyone, not even Theo, especially not Theo. For 7 months, nothing dramatic happened. Lucia was cold to Lara, but not cruel. Katie visited rarely. Arthur, my father-in-law, mostly ignored us both. I started to think maybe I was paranoid. Maybe traveling 12 days a month for work was making me see threats where there were none. Then I came home 3 days early and found them shaving my daughter's head over a crime she didn't commit. At 9:15 p.m., after Lara was asleep, I downloaded the footage from the nanny cam to my laptop. The living room camera had a wide view that captured the entire main floor. I scrolled back to 2:30 that afternoon when Katie had arrived while I was supposed to be in Denver. The video was crystal clear. Katie came in with Lucia and Arthur. Theo was at work. Katie was wearing gold bracelets on both wrists. She took one off and set it on the coffee table while she was looking at her phone. Then she got up to use the bathroom. The bracelet stayed on the table. At 3:47 p.m., Katie came back and looked around, confused. "Where's my bracelet?" she said on camera. "I left it right here." Lucia looked at Lara, who was coloring in her workbook at the kids' table in the corner. "Did you take Katie's bracelet?" Lara didn't even look up. "What's a bracelet?" "The gold thing on the table," Katie said, her voice rising. "Where did you put it?" "I didn't touch anything. I'm coloring." But Katie was already searching. She looked under the couch cushions, behind the TV stand, in Lara's toy box. The bracelet was nowhere. At 4:12 p.m., Katie said, "That little brat stole it. I know she did." And then I watched what really happened. At 4:31 p.m., while Lucia was in the kitchen and Arthur was reading the newspaper, Katie herself reached between the couch cushions and pulled out the bracelet she'd lost. She'd hidden it there herself. She looked at it, looked at Lara, and smiled. Then she slipped it into her purse and walked into the kitchen. "Mom," I heard her say off camera, "Lara definitely stole my bracelet. We need to teach her a lesson before Sarah gets back and coddles her like always." I watched the rest in horror. Lucia getting the electric clippers from the garage. Arthur holding Lara still while she screamed. Lucia shaving off patches of hair while Katie filmed it on her phone, laughing. "This is what happens to little thieves," Lucia kept saying. "This is what you get." At 6:44 p.m., my car pulled into the driveway. Katie hid her phone. Lucia kept shaving, and I walked into the nightmare they'd constructed for me. I sat there on my couch at 9:47 p.m., watching the video for the third time. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My face felt numb. I had proof. Undeniable, time-stamped, clear video proof that Katie had staged the entire thing, that they'd abused my daughter over a lie, that Arthur had physically restrained a crying 3-year-old while his wife shaved her head like some medieval punishment. I made 3 copies of the video, one on a USB drive that I put in my car, one uploaded to a private cloud storage account, one sent to my personal email with the subject line, "Evidence, do not delete." Then I called my husband. Theo answered on the second ring. "Hey babe, Mom said there was some drama with Lara and Katie's bracelet. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, eh?" "They shaved our daughter's head, Theo." Silence. Then, "Well, if she stole something, Yao?" "She didn't steal anything. Katie staged it." "Sarah, come on. Katie wouldn't—" "I have it on video." Another pause. Longer this time. "What video?" "The nanny cam in the living room. I've had it for 7 months. It shows everything." Katie hiding her own bracelet, then accusing Lara. "Your parents holding Lara down while she screamed, all of it." His voice changed, got colder. "You've been recording my family without their consent? That's illegal, Sarah. That's an invasion of privacy." Something crystallized in that moment. My husband's first reaction wasn't concern for our daughter. It wasn't horror at what his family had done. It was anger that I'd documented it. "I'm staying at the Courtyard Hotel tonight with Lara," I said. "Room 314. Don't call me unless you're ready to apologize to your daughter for what your family did." I hung up. He didn't call back. At 10:52 p.m., I packed a bag for Lara and me. Pajamas, toothbrushes, her stuffed elephant, my laptop, my work documents, the USB drive. We left our house, my house, the one I'd been paying half the mortgage on for 4 years, and checked into a hotel 6 miles away. Lara woke up when I carried her to the car, looked at me with confused, exhausted eyes, and whispered, "Are Grandma and Auntie Katie mad at me?" "No, baby," I lied. "They're not mad. We're just having a sleepover somewhere fun tonight." The hotel room was cold and impersonal, with green carpets and beige walls. I tucked Lara into the queen bed and sat on the floor with my laptop open, watching the video one more time. At 11:37 p.m., Theo finally texted, "Mom says you're overreacting. Just come home and we'll talk about this like adults." I didn't respond. I opened my work email and found my business travel records for the past 4 years. Every trip documented. Every flight booked through the company portal. Every hotel receipt saved. February 2022 to March 2026. 187 business trips. That was 187 times I'd left my daughter with Theo's family, trusting them, believing they loved her like I did. I thought about the bruises, the thrown-away rabbit, the comments about Lara being difficult. How many other things had happened that I didn't have on camera? At 1:14 a.m., I made a decision. I found a family law attorney's website, Morrison and Associates on Westbrook Avenue, and filled out their intake form. Under reason for consultation, I typed, "Divorce." I held her and promised her something I wasn't sure I could deliver. No one's ever going to hurt you like that again. My phone rang at 7:45 a.m. "Theo." I didn't answer. He called 6 more times. At 8:12 a.m., Lucia called. I blocked the number. At 8:30, Katie called from a number I didn't recognize. "You better bring Lara back and apologize," she said when I made the mistake of answering. "We have rights as grandparents. You can't just take her away because you're having one of your dramatic episodes." "Katie," I said, my voice steady, "I have video of you hiding your own bracelet and then blaming my 3-year-old daughter. I have video of your mother shaving Lara's head while your father held her down. If you ever contact me again, I'm sending that video to the police, to CPS, and to every single person in your social circle. Do you understand?" She hung up. She didn't call back. At 9:47 a.m., an attorney named Rebecca Morrison called me. "Mrs. Miller? I got your intake form. Can you come in today? I had a cancellation at 2 p.m. "I'll be there," I said. I spent the morning with Lara at a children's museum, trying to make her smile, trying to pretend everything was normal. She played with a water table and built a tower with foam blocks, but she kept touching her head, self-conscious. Other kids stared. One mother gave me a look like I was some kind of monster who'd done that to her own child. At 1:40 p.m., I dropped Lara off with my co-worker Jennifer, the only person I trusted who lived nearby. "Just for a couple hours," I told her. "I have a meeting." Jennifer looked at Lara's hair and asked if everything was okay. I said, "Not yet, but it will be." Rebecca Morrison's office was in a brick building with glass doors and modern furniture. She was in her mid-50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes. She offered me coffee. I took it even though my hands were already shaking. We sat in her conference room, and I showed her the video on my laptop. She watched without saying a word. When it ended, she leaned back and folded her hands. "Mrs. Miller, this is one of the clearest cases of child abuse documentation I've seen in 23 years of family law. Your daughter was physically restrained and had her hair forcibly cut by adults in a position of trust, while they verbally berated her for a crime she didn't commit, which was staged by another adult. Do you understand what you have here?" "Proof," I said. "Leverage," she corrected. "Your husband's family assaulted your child. You have time-stamped video evidence. You have your daughter's testimony. You have the fact that you were out of state on business when this occurred, which eliminates any possibility that you were complicit. What do you want from this?" I'd been thinking about that since 1:19 a.m. Full custody of Lara, the house, half of all marital assets, and a restraining order keeping Lucia, Arthur, and Katie at least 500 feet from my daughter for the rest of her childhood. Rebecca smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd seen too many bad families do too many bad things. "Let's talk about your marriage. Does your husband work?" "He's a project manager at a tech firm, Makes about 90,000 a year. I'm a regional sales director. I make 112,000 plus bonuses. The condo is in both our names, but I've been paying the majority of the mortgage for the past 4 years because my income is higher. I have bank statements proving I've contributed $284,000 over that time. He's contributed about 190,000. Children? Just Lara. And the condo's current value? We had it appraised last year at 518,000. We owe about 68,000 on the mortgage. Rebecca did the math in her head. So about 450,000 in equity. You're entitled to half plus a disparity adjustment based on your larger financial contribution. She made notes on her legal pad. I need you to send me all your bank statements, mortgage payment records, and business travel documentation for the past 4 years. I also need any texts or emails between you and your husband regarding this incident, and I need that video file with metadata intact. I have everything, I said. I've been documenting. Good. She looked at me carefully. Mrs. Miller, I need to know. Are you prepared for your husband to choose his family over you? I thought about Theo's voice on the phone last night, his anger about the camera, not the abuse, his mother's words echoing in his silence. I looked at Rebecca and said, he already has. By 4:30 p.m., Rebecca had drafted a separation agreement and an emergency custody order. By 5:15 p.m., we'd filed both with the family court. By 6 p.m., I'd changed all my passwords, opened a new bank account at a different institution, and transferred half of our joint savings, $50,000 that I'd earned, and saved over 8 years of business trips and careful budgeting. At 7:22 p.m., Theo showed up at Jennifer's house where I was picking up Lara. He looked terrible, unshaven, wrinkled shirt, eyes red. Sarah, please, can we talk about this? Mom's really upset. She says you're threatening her with a fake video. Fake? I stared at him. You think I fabricated time-stamped HD footage of your mother shaving our daughter's head? I think you're stressed from traveling too much and you're seeing things that aren't there. Katie swears she didn't hide the bracelet. Mom says Lara was out of control and needed discipline. Dad says you're blowing everything out of proportion. Your father held our 3-year-old daughter down while she screamed for me. That's on video, Theo, clear as day. And you're telling me I'm seeing things that aren't there? Jennifer was standing in her doorway with Lara behind her, watching. Lara's face crumpled when she saw her father. Daddy, tell Grandma I'm sorry. Tell her I didn't take the bracelet. Please, Daddy. Theo looked at his daughter. At her butchered hair, her terrified face, her small hands clutching Jennifer's leg. And then he said, Lara, if you didn't take it, then why did Aunt Katie say you did? That's when something inside me didn't just break. It hardened, like glass heated too high, then frozen. Theo wasn't protecting our daughter. He was protecting his family's reputation. He was choosing them. We're done, I said. You'll be served with divorce papers within the week. My attorney's name is Rebecca Morrison. Have your lawyer contact her. Sarah, you can't just... Watch me. I took Lara's hand and walked to my car. He didn't follow us. As I buckled Lara into her car seat, I saw him standing in Jennifer's driveway, his phone already out, probably calling his mother. That weekend was the longest of my life. Saturday morning, Lucia left me a voicemail. You're destroying this family over a child's mistake. When you calm down and realize what you've done, don't expect us to forgive you easily. You've always been jealous of Katie and now you're using Lara as a weapon. This is who you really are, Sarah. Your daughter will grow up knowing you tore her family apart. I saved the voicemail, added it to the evidence folder. Sunday afternoon, I took Lara to a child psychologist that Rebecca recommended. Dr. Patricia Chen was kind and gentle. She talked to Lara for 45 minutes while I sat in the waiting room. When they came out, Lara was holding a lollipop and Dr. Chen asked to speak with me privately. Your daughter has symptoms of trauma, she told me. She's hypervigilant, easily startled, and showing signs of regressive behavior. She asked me 3 times during our session if I was angry with her. She's been conditioned to believe she's done something wrong. I'm going to write a report documenting what she told me about the incident, which corroborates your video evidence. This will be very useful in your custody case." I thanked her. I didn't cry. I was too numb for crying. Monday morning, I went back to work. My manager, David Reeves, called me into his office at 10:30 a.m. "Sarah, I heard about your situation. Jennifer mentioned you might need some flexibility with travel for a while. We can reassign your upcoming Denver and Phoenix trips if you need to focus on family right now." That's when I almost broke. Not when Lucia called me a bad mother, not when Theo chose his parents over his daughter, but when my boss, who barely knew me outside of quarterly reviews, offered to help without judgment. "Thank you," I managed. "That would help. Also," David said carefully, "if you need any documentation for legal purposes, travel records, paycheck stubs, confirmation that you were out of state when the incident occurred, just let me know. HR can provide certified copies." By Tuesday, Theo's lawyer had contacted Rebecca. His name was Gerald Finch, and his strategy was predictable. Paint me as an unstable, paranoid wife who was alienating Lara from her father's family. He claimed the video was edited. He claimed I'd coached Lara to lie. He claimed I was mentally unfit. Rebecca sent him Dr. Chen's report, my business travel records proving I was in Denver when the abuse occurred, and a forensic analysis of the video file showing it was unedited and authentic. She also sent him stills from the video showing Katie hiding the bracelet, Arthur restraining Lara, and Lucia with the clippers. Thursday afternoon, Gerald Finch called Rebecca and asked if we'd be willing to negotiate a settlement rather than go to court. "They know they'll lose," Rebecca told me over the phone. "The video is damning. Your travel records give you an ironclad alibi for any claim that you were involved. And the child psychologist's report establishes trauma. If this goes to trial, your husband's family will be publicly exposed, and there's a real possibility of criminal charges for child abuse." What are they offering? Shared custody, split assets down the middle, no restraining order. Basically, they want everything to go away quietly. "No," I said. "I want full custody, the house, and the restraining order. My daughter doesn't feel safe around them. That's non-negotiable." "Then we go to mediation," Rebecca said. "And if that fails, we go to court." Mediation was scheduled for Friday, April 5th at 2 p.m. That gave me 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks of Lara waking up with nightmares. 3 weeks of Theo calling, texting, begging me to think about what this will do to the family. 3 weeks of Lucia leaving voicemails that oscillated between guilt-tripping and threats. 3 weeks of Katie posting on social media about toxic daughters-in-law who brainwash innocent children. I documented everything. Every call, every text, every voicemail, every social media post. I built a file so comprehensive that Rebecca said it looked like a federal investigation. On April 4th, the night before mediation, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the hotel room I'd been living in for 3 weeks. The courtyard had become home. And watched Lara sleep in the other bed. Her hair was growing back. Dr. Chen said her nightmares were getting less frequent. She'd started smiling again at the museum. I thought about what Lucia had said. "You're destroying this family." But I hadn't destroyed anything. They'd destroyed it themselves the moment they decided that their pride was more important than a 3-year-old child's safety. At 1:47 p.m. on April 5th, I walked into the law offices of Morrison and Associates for the mediation. Rebecca met me in the lobby. "They're already here," she said, "all 4 of them." "Good," I said. "Let's finish this." The conference room was exactly what you'd expect from a legal mediation. Long table, leather chairs, windows overlooking the street, a water pitcher no one would touch. Theo sat on the far side with his parents and Katie. Gerald Finch, their attorney, sat at the head of the table. A mediator named Thomas Webb sat at the other head. Rebecca and I took the remaining chairs. Lucia looked at me with pure hatred. Katie smirked. Arthur's face was blank, unreadable. Theo looked sick, guilty, trapped. Thomas Webb opened his folder and began with the standard mediation speech about finding common ground, about doing what's best for the child, about avoiding the emotional and financial cost of a trial. I barely heard him. I was watching Katie's bracelet, the same gold bracelet, glinting on her wrist like proof of her lie. "Let's begin with custody," Thomas said. "Mr. Miller is requesting 50-50 shared custody with alternating weeks. Mrs. Miller is requesting full physical custody with supervised visitation for Mr. Miller and a restraining order barring Mrs. Lucia Miller, Mr. Arthur Miller, and Miss Katie Miller from contact with the minor child. Mrs. Morrison, would you like to present your client's position?" Rebecca pulled out her laptop and turned it toward the center of the table. "Before we discuss positions, I'd like everyone to watch a video. It's 4 minutes and 12 seconds long. It was recorded on March 14th between 2:30 p.m. and 6:47 p.m. by a legally installed home security camera in Mrs. Miller's living room. The timestamp is embedded and has been verified by a forensic digital analyst as authentic and unedited." She pressed play. The room went silent except for the audio from the video. I didn't watch the screen. I watched them. Katie's face went white when she saw herself hide the bracelet. Lucia's jaw clenched when the video showed her with the clippers. Arthur shifted in his seat when his own voice came through the speakers. "Hold still, you little brat. This is what happens when you steal." And Theo. Theo closed his eyes, like he couldn't bear to watch what his family had done to his daughter. When the video ended, no one spoke for exactly 18 seconds. I counted. "That video is inadmissible," Gerald Finch finally said. "It was recorded without consent." "Wrong," Rebecca said calmly. "It was recorded in Mrs. Miller's own home, in a common area, with no expectation of privacy. It's completely legal under state law. Furthermore, even if there were questions about admissibility in a criminal trial, this is a family court matter. The judge will absolutely see this video when making custody determinations." Lucia found her voice. "That video doesn't show the full context. Lara had been acting out all day." "The full context," I said, speaking for the first time, "is that Katie staged a theft to frame my 3-year-old daughter. Then you shaved Lara's head while your husband held her down and she screamed for me. That's not discipline. That's abuse." "You weren't even there," Lucia shot back. "You're always traveling, always putting your career first, leaving your daughter with us while you chase money." "I was in Denver for work," I said. "I have flight records, hotel receipts, and meeting attendance logs. I left my daughter with her father, trusting him to protect her. Instead, he let you abuse her." "We did not abuse her," Katie said, her voice rising. "We were teaching her a lesson about stealing." "She didn't steal anything," I said. "You hid your own bracelet. It's on video, Katie. At 3:47 p.m., you put it between the couch cushions yourself." "That's not... I didn't..." Katie looked at her mother, panicking. "Mom, tell them that's not what happened." Lucia's face had gone hard and cold. "You're the thief here, Sarah. You've been stealing from this family since you married my son. You manipulated Theo into paying for a house you couldn't afford. You used Lara to trap him into marriage. And now you're using this fake video to steal everything from us." "Mom, stop," Theo said quietly. Everyone looked at him. He was staring at the laptop screen, which still showed the paused image of Lara's terrified face. "Mom, stop, please." "Theodore, don't you dare side with her," Lucia said. "She's trying to destroy our family." "She didn't destroy anything." Theo's voice was barely a whisper. "We did. Dad, you held my daughter down. Mom, you shaved her head. Katie, you lied about the bracelet. And I..." His voice cracked. "I didn't believe Sarah when she tried to tell me. I chose you over my own daughter." The silence that followed was suffocating. Arthur cleared his throat. "Son, we were just trying to help you discipline a difficult child. Sarah travels too much. The girl needs structure." "She's 3 years old!" Theo's voice finally broke. "She's 3, and you tortured her over a bracelet that Katie never even lost." "It was just a misunderstanding," Katie said quickly. "I must have accidentally..." Stop lying, Theo said. I watched the video, Katie. You hid it on purpose. Why would you do that to my daughter? Katie opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. She looked at Lucia for help, but Lucia was staring at Thomas Webb like she could force him to throw out the evidence through sheer willpower alone. Rebecca let the moment breathe. Then she spoke. Mr. Finch, my client is willing to settle this today under the following terms. Mrs. Miller receives full physical custody of Lara. Mr. Miller receives supervised visitation every other weekend, supervised by a third-party monitor, for a period of 6 months, after which we can revisit unsupervised visitation if he completes a co-parenting course. Mrs. Lucia Miller, Mr. Arthur Miller, and Ms. Katie Miller will be subject to a restraining order prohibiting them from coming within 500 feet of Lara Miller or from contacting her in any way until she turns 18. Mrs. Miller receives the marital home and 65% of marital assets, totaling approximately $225,000 in cash. Mr. Miller keeps his retirement accounts and vehicle. Mrs. Miller will also receive $15,000 in damages to cover Lara's therapy costs and compensation for the emotional harm caused. Gerald Finch looked at his clients. Lucia was shaking her head. Absolutely not. We're not signing away our rights to see our granddaughter because of one disciplinary incident that's been blown completely out of proportion. Then we go to trial, Rebecca said, and I will introduce this video in open court. I will call Lara's therapist to testify about the trauma your actions caused. I will call Mrs. Miller's employer to verify her business travel records. I will submit forensic analysis proving the video is authentic. And I will personally ensure that every news outlet in this city receives a copy of this video showing 3 adults abusing a toddler. The headline will be, Grandmother shaves 3-year-old's head over false theft accusation. How do you think that will affect your social lives? Your jobs? Your reputations? Arthur's face had gone gray. You wouldn't. Try me, Rebecca said. The mediator, Thomas Webb, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should take a 15-minute recess to allow both parties to consult privately with their attorneys. We reconvened at 3:42 p.m. Lucia looked like she'd been crying. Katie looked furious. Arthur looked defeated. Theo looked broken. Gerald Finch spoke first. My clients are prepared to accept the following modified terms. Mrs. Miller receives full custody. Mr. Miller receives supervised visitation. Mrs. Lucia Miller, Mr. Arthur Miller, and Mrs. Katie Miller agree to the restraining order for a period of 5 years, not until the child turns 18. Mrs. Miller receives the marital home and 60% of marital assets. The $15,000 in damages is non-negotiable. They won't pay it. Rebecca looked at me. I thought about Lara's face when she touched her hair. I thought about the nightmares. I thought about Dr. Chen's report, symptoms of trauma. 18 years, I said. The restraining order is until she's 18 or it's no deal. And they apologized to Lara on video, all 3 of them, today. Right now. Absolutely not, Lucia said. I'm not apologizing for trying to teach a child right from wrong. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos. The video file was already queued. Then I'm sending this to every parent in Lara's preschool, every person on your Facebook friends list, and the local news station, right now. I'll do it while we sit here. My finger hovered over the share button. Wait, Theo said. Mom, just apologize, please, for me. Just do it. Lucia looked at her son. Her face was a mask of betrayal, like he'd stabbed her instead of asking her to take responsibility for abusing his child. You're going to regret this, Theodore. When you realize what she's taken from you. She hasn't taken anything from me, Theo said. I gave it away. By not protecting my daughter when she needed me. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond. Sorry didn't fix anything. At 4:15 p.m., Rebecca set up her phone to record. Katie went first, her apology stiff and insincere. Lara, I'm sorry for what happened. I made a mistake. Arthur went next. Lara, I apologize for my actions. Then Lucia, her voice dripping with resentment. Lara, I'm sorry if my methods of discipline were too harsh. The apologies were garbage, but they were on video, time-stamped, undeniable. And more importantly, I had my settlement. The papers were signed at 5:03 p.m., full custody to me. Restraining order until Lara's 18th birthday. The house, the assets, the closure. Rebecca shook my hand. Gerald Finch packed up his briefcase quickly, like he couldn't wait to leave. Lucia, Arthur, and Katie walked out without looking at me. Theo lingered. Can I say goodbye to Lara? I thought about his failures and his choices and his weakness. But I also thought about the fact that he'd finally stood up to his mother, too late to save his marriage, but maybe soon enough to save his relationship with his daughter. Supervised visits start next month, I said. If you want to see her, show up for those, be consistent, prove you can protect her. Then maybe we can talk about more time. He nodded. He didn't try to hug me, he just walked out. Rebecca and I stood alone in the conference room. You did it, she said. You protected your daughter. Yeah, I said, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired and empty and relieved. I picked Lara up from Jennifer's house at 6:30 p.m. She was playing with toy dinosaurs, her hair growing back in soft, uneven patches. When she saw me, she ran over and hugged my legs. Mama, we're having chicken nuggets for dinner. Jennifer has the good kind with dinosaur shapes. I knelt down and held her face in my hands. Baby, I have good news. We're getting our own house, just you and me, and Grandma, Grandpa, and Auntie Katie aren't going to come visit anymore. She looked at me with those huge brown eyes. Never? Not until you're all grown up and you can decide if you want to see them. Okay, she said, simply, like it was no big deal. Like she'd already moved on in the way children can, their hearts healing faster than ours because they haven't learned yet to hold on to pain. 3 months later, I stood in the empty living room of the condo that was now legally mine. The furniture was gone, the nanny cam was gone. The coffee table where Katie had set her bracelet was gone. It was just hardwood floors and white walls and windows letting in June's sunlight. Lara ran through the empty rooms, her footsteps echoing, her hair now almost back to normal. Mama, which room is mine? Can I have the one with the window that faces the tree? Yes, baby. Whichever room you want. I'd paid Theo $225,000 for his share of the equity. My savings account was depleted, but the house was mine. No more joint ownership. No more pretending we were a family when we'd really been a collection of people who hurt each other and called it love. I got a text from Rebecca. Restraining order officially in effect as of today. Theo's first supervised visit is scheduled for Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Children's Advocacy Center. I'll be there to observe. I replied, Thank you. For everything. She sent back a simple, You're stronger than you know. But I didn't feel strong. I felt like someone who'd survived something I never should have had to survive in the first place. That night, after I'd put Lara to bed in her new room, still empty except for a mattress on the floor and her stuffed elephant, I sat on the back porch and looked at the stars. My phone buzzed, a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah? It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. This is Margaret Finch, Gerald Finch's wife. I hope you don't mind, I got your number from his files. Okay, I said carefully. I just wanted to tell you something. I watched that video. Gerald showed it to me because he couldn't believe what he was seeing, what they did to your little girl. Her voice broke. I have 3 daughters. If someone did that to them, I would have burned the whole world down. You didn't burn anything. You just asked for the truth. That took more strength than most people have. I'm sorry for what you went through. I'm sorry Gerald tried to defend them. He knows it was wrong. He told them after the mediation that he won't represent them again if they try to appeal. I didn't know what to say. Thank you for calling. One more thing, she said. I work for the county CPS office. That video came across my desk officially last week because someone filed a report. I can't tell you who, but the case is under investigation. What happened to Laura matters, Mrs. Miller. You did the right thing. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in the dark, holding my phone and thought about justice. How it's not always dramatic. How sometimes it's just a phone call from a stranger telling you that your pain mattered, that you weren't crazy, that the truth was finally being heard. 1 year later, I stood in the same backyard on a warm April evening, watching Lara play with her new friend from kindergarten. Her hair was long again, pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing her favorite purple dress and light-up sneakers, and she was laughing at something silly, the way 5-year-olds laugh, full-throated and free. Theo came to supervised visits for 6 months. Then he completed the co-parenting course. Then he started seeing Lara unsupervised every other weekend. He'd moved into an apartment across town. He didn't talk about his family. I didn't ask. Dr. Chen said Lara's trauma symptoms had almost completely resolved. I'd taken on a new role at work that required less travel, regional training director, same pay, more stable schedule, home every night for dinner. David Reeves had advocated for me to get the position. "You've earned it," he said, "and your daughter needs you." The restraining order was still in effect. Lucia had tried to appeal it once, claiming she had grandparents' rights. The judge had watched the video and denied the appeal immediately. I hadn't heard from any of them since. Katie had moved to Arizona, according to a mutual acquaintance who didn't know the story. Arthur had retired early. Lucia had stopped posting on social media entirely. Their world had gotten smaller, mine had gotten bigger. I built a garden in the backyard. Tomatoes, basil, sunflowers. Lara helped me plant seeds and water them and pull weeds. She'd ask sometimes, "Why don't I see Grandma anymore?" And I'd say, "Because she made choices that hurt you, and my job is to keep you safe." And she'd say, "Okay," and go back to playing. Some wounds heal, some just scar over and you learn to live with them. If you're watching this and you've ever had to choose between peace and protecting someone you love, I want you to know that choosing protection is always right, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything, even when the people who should have protected you are the ones you're protecting against. Silence isn't peace. Silence is just a pause before the next hurt. Real peace comes from boundaries, from saying no, from walking away when staying means letting someone you love get hurt. If you've ever had to be the one who breaks the silence and faces the consequences, type, "I broke the silence," in the comments. Or, if you're still gathering courage, type, "I'm still gathering strength." Both are valid. Both matter. This story meant something to me to tell. I hope it meant something to you to hear. If you want more stories about choosing courage over comfort, check the description box below. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.